All right, everyone, without further ado, I'm going to introduce our wonderful panelists today. We've got Dede Ayite. Woo! One of our adjunct professors. We've got Fabio Tablini. And David Zinn, all Broadway here. Broadway level designers. And we're very, very glad to welcome you today. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you. Before we start, I just want to thank you, May, Mark, and the entire theater department for helping to facilitate this, and especially Ariel, who puts the fabulous poster together, and our refreshments. I also formally want to welcome David. David is a set and costume designer. On Broadway, he's designed scenery for Kimberly Akimbo, which is on Broadway right now. Funny Girl, The Minutes, Diana, Torch Song, and The Humans. David has also designed scenery and costumes. David also designed scenery and costumes for the SpongeBob musical, Fun Home, Choir Boy, and most recently designed costumes for Almost Famous, which is also on Broadway right now, A Doll's House Part 2, Airline Highway, Bengal Tiger. David has worked at many theaters off-Broadway, at the Public, Playwrights Horizons, MTC, regionally at ACT, San Francisco, The Globe, CTG, and many more. David, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's so happy to be here.
And then Fabio Tablini is also a Broadway designer who designed Romeo and Juliet, Off-Broadway, Hedwig and the Angry Inch, Bat Boy the Musical, The Divine Sister, and as well as having designed many shows at regional theater, opera, and ballet companies. He studied fashion design and pattern making. I'm about to butcher the name of the school.
Oh, Marangoni School.
There you go. In Milan. And voice at Emerson College, UK. Following his heart, he came to New York City in 1991 and started making ends meet working in a costume shop where he met the costume designers that took him on as an apprentice and assistant. Since the pandemic, he has been focusing on digital embroidery and machine knitting, both crafts that he had been practicing on his own. Awards that he's received are the 2008 Irene Sheriff Young Master Awards, in addition to the 2016 Connecticut's Critics Circle Award. Thank you for being with us today. All right, so to dive straight in, I would love to just maybe a brief intro into how you got started and your career and what made you even want to work in theater or in design.
Well, I first started in fashion, and I went to school in Milan, and I worked in fashion for a few years. I was very young, and I decided to stop. I didn't like it anymore after a while, so I had a little bit of a existential crisis, and I ended up in England, where I did foundation year in the arts. I started studying voice, then I moved to Germany. I went to continue with studying voice there. So I had
you were going to be a singer studying?
Yes. And so I didn't want to, I said, no more fabrics, no more scissors, no more designs, no more, I don't want to dress bodies anymore, that's it. And as I was studying voice, we were just putting up a school production of Henry Purcell, the Fairy Queen, and I was asked to work on the costumes because nobody else would. So I said yes, just because I felt like I had to, and actually it was very inspiring because I felt I could apply what I had studied so long for and I had worked on so long, but on a complete different, conceptually in a very different way. And what I really liked about it and what was different about fashion is that fashion was more of a product, but costume design was really about building worlds and nothing had to sell. So it was just this fantastic, for me, what was interesting is the fantastic world, either a world lost in time or a world that doesn't exist. Those were really what was interesting me about costume design. And it shows sort of my curriculum because I probably did one contemporary play and that was it. So no more. So that's so then I came to New York. I just fell in love with with someone from New York, and I came here to visit. I was planning on being here a couple of weeks, and that was 1991. And so, yeah, as I said in my bio, I found a job in a costume shop, and I started there, basically. And the rest is history.
And I have a quick follow-up to that. What was the transition like from working in the costume shop to working as a designer? What made you want to pivot?
Well, I always wanted to be a designer. So I just, I came here without money. I didn't have anything. So I just needed to find something to do. So I thought of using the skills that I had instead of, I don't know, winning a restaurant or something, which probably would have been more proficuous in a monetary way, but still, I still think it was a good choice. And so that was always the goal. So as I was there, really I used that environment to really meet costume designers, which then, of course, did not really help me finding jobs as designers, but they were basically my schooling, because I did not go to school for costume design. I just learned it as an apprentice from a few designers that I admired, and I ended up working with.
You built your career that
What was
way.
the costume shop, Fabio?
Izquierdo Studio.
It was Izquierdo.
Yes, it was proverbially known for picking up street urchins. That was one of them.
That's amazing. And I know we'll touch on this a little later, but just the skills that I know the skills that you picked up from working in the costume shop till today, you use in the way that you create your art, whether it's through designing shows or in like fabricating pieces yourself. So.
Yeah, I always liked the craft side of what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And when you design, as you know, you don't get to make anything. It's just making choices, and work with people that will then make things for you. And of course, I like that, but I like that only when I find a collaborator that was work I like. But you have to make do without making them feel bad, people that you don't really agree with, And by agreeing with, I'm not saying in a judgmental way. I'm just saying a matter of taste, or it's a matter of way of doing things. So it's really more about dealing with people, and I don't think it's my forte. I mean, I do it, but it's not really where my love for that lies. So I would rather stay at home and make something. I find that a lot more pleasurable. And talking about the pandemic, I was actually working a lot right before the pandemic, and the pandemic hit. And so I was just there, and I started making things for myself. And when the time came to go back, I just didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
So, and then things started falling into place. Somebody just asked me to make knits for the Metropolitan Opera, so I started doing that. And
then we worked together
to make some embroidery, and so we started, yeah.
And we'll get into more of that later, right? Into the pivot and the sustainability as an artist, and how you reinvent yourself as things shift in society, and also just what speaks to your heart. I think even when you were talking about working as an artist in the costume shop, it sounds like you came to the decision to move along because it had to feel right for you. And I think that is very important.
Yeah.
So before we get too deep into that, I'd love to know, David, from you, what your experience was like starting out as an artist, and how you found your way into costume and set design.
Yeah, thanks. I was it's so nice. Mark is a design hero of mine, and Dede and Fabio. This is very honored to be with this group. So thanks. I was like a theater nerd, musical theater nerd. Grew up in a little island outside Seattle. I wanted to be an Annie. It's like that's like really all I wanted to do in my entire life. So I just wanted to be on stage, and then at a certain point I was like, I was on stage and little, community theater things and stuff, and that felt like cool, but also I was like, actually not. Like, I like being in the room where this is happening, but I may be in the wrong place in the room. And backstage just started to really pull at my heart. And I was in a time and a place where there were a lot of opportunities for super irritating and super ambitious teenager to be. I was like, can I help do this, and can I lay out the prop table, and can I do this thing, and can I do, I just want to do anything backstage, and then that started to become, a woman who ran the theater company who was like, noticed that I was into design, and she was like, well, do you want to design the thing for the teenage repertory company? So I was like in it, and then I like designed it, and by the time I was towards the end of high school, I just, like, the designing part felt really great, and the in it part felt not great. And so I stopped the in it part and focused on the design it part. I was always interested in both sets and clothes. It was far pre-internet, and so there was a thing called the Drama Review, which was like a performance journal and theater crafts, and I sort of combined those two magazines to build a kind of aesthetic that I understood, which was both a little bit like Broadway musical and also like the Wooster Group and Richard Foreman and crazy East Village performance that I was starting to read about, and all of those things seemed really interesting, and that was like that was like, you got your chocolate and my peanut butter or whatever, like that. Those two things was in some ways kind of laid the path for sort of what I've continued to do. I came to NYU in 1987 as an undergraduate. At the time, they allowed you to be enrolled in the graduate design program, theater design program, as an undergraduate. P.S. That's a bad idea, but P.P.S. I did it, and it's a bad idea because you guys are undergrads.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I just, you're turning into yourself, and it's like the most beautiful 4 years, I think, and I did that, but I also did it in kind of like, I didn't understand what a kind of professional training program was, and I was both kind of ready for it, but also could have used the time to a little bit turn into myself, So I sort of did that on the job, for better and for worse. Anyway, I did that. I sort of thought I'd go back to Seattle. I loved Seattle. I was really happy to go back there, and I just imagined my beautiful life with my like gardening boyfriend, and like that was going to be so great. But now I'm 53 and I'm still here. So I didn't. I stayed here. I worked at a crazy off-Broadway theater that still exists, a company called Target Margin Theater, which I did the first show of and spent a decade doing all sorts of things. And that was the way for me to forge kind of my own aesthetic. I don't make things. My only trade as a person who can make things as a scenic artist, which I've made some money doing, but I don't know how to sew. Like now I understand the principles of it more. Sorry, this is a long answer to the question. I'm so sorry.
Great.
So I started making a vocabulary of clothes. Which for me were always, I would just use things that were kind of already constructed. So like I didn't have to make the arm's eye because that seemed hard. So I was like, well, this sleeve is already attached to that shoulder. So I just use that and then like cut it up and put it on something else. And, so sort of Frankenstein my way into a sort of aesthetic that involved, my very deep love of avant-garde fashion and fashion shapes and stuff. And also, just kind of fashion history and costume history and stuff, and theater history, which was also something that I, in a kind of clunky way, I'm really interested in. Not that I don't think of myself as a backwards looking person, except with nostalgia. I want the form to change, but I'm interested in the vocabulary of the historical form, for better and for worse. Blah blah blah. Anyway, and now it's now. At school I was more of a set designer. I took all the costume design classes and I drew clothes. By fortune, she was very upset by the work that I did. I get it. No, I know. That was a bad show. Just by luck, someone I knew in Seattle hired me out of school to do costumes for a 18th century play, and I knew how to draw them, but I just didn't. I had no idea what that really meant. And I remember I had two good fortunes. Ugh, sorry, this is so long. Two good fortunes. This will be the end of it. And now it's now. Two good fortune. One, Greg Barnes worked in the undergrad costume shop, the amazing designer Greg Barnes, and he worked at undergrad costume shop at NYU. And he was super sweet, remained super sweet, and very accessible. And I remember going to him I'd drawn the sketches, and I scheduled a little time to go with him, do this also with you as you meet these mentors. This was really helpful. And I literally was like, what have I drawn? What am I asking for? What can they do? What do I need? So he was like, I had drawn a quilted petticoat. He's like, they could quilt the petticoat. To me, this was like, they can quilt a petticoat? That's the greatest day of my life. What else can I ask for? So, he was able to give me a sense of what was possible. And the other thing was, and this goes to Fabio's, you spend a lot of this job choosing things and also trying to shepherding people. You're have 20 people that all need to kind of be making related decisions so that and the director's vision can come to life. And you're like, no, that one. The first costume shop that was building the show, there was an amazing draper. It was a small shop. It was like a draper and a first hand and a kind of tailor / first hand and a crafts person. And I remember she asked me, she was like, well, what kind of ruffle do you want on this sleeve? And I literally was like, what kind of ruffle? What are these questions? I don't know, a ruffly one, I don't know. There's always a moment where because I was like, she could tell that I had literally no idea what she was saying. And there's a moment where that person can either be like, fuck you, and you're not knowing about ruffles. What are you doing in my costume shop and why are you here? And I'm just going to give you whatever then and you're dumb. There's that person. And then there's a person who did what Ginny did, which was to say, oh, okay, well, there's this and this. Why don't it actually take a half an hour, and she... I came into the costume shop the next morning and she'd set up 3 different dress forms, and there was just a banged out little sleeve and muslin and circle ruffle, pleated ruffle, a this ruffle. And then I could pick the ruffle, and then we talked about how to finish the edges and stuff. And so she really educated me about not just historical clothes, because I could do the research, but just what is that? Why did I pick the wrong fabric? Why isn't this thing like that? And that was invaluable. So I spent about a decade really working a lot in that theater and then in other shops that she worked at, and really educating myself about just why does in this Lacroix picture, in this Christian Lacroix picture, what is it that makes what's being pulled up and what's being yanked, and how do what is that and how do you make that? And that was an incredible journey. And sometimes, some people are up for teaching you that and some people are not. But once you start to know it, then you can say, no, why don't we, X, Y, and Z. Through weird circumstances, I also designed scenery. I started to do both of them at the same time. Now I'm mostly a set designer. Almost Famous was the first show in a while where I just done the clothes, which was really fun. And and now I'm almost 54 and still.
Thank you. That's wonderful. I have to say, listening to that, what I heard from you talk about drawing out the ideas is that if you dream it, it's possible, right? And so having Greg Barnes look at it, it's if you dream it and you put it on paper and you find a way to communicate those ideas, it's possible for it to be created, right? And maybe on the first pass, it might not be exactly what you want, but if you also have the right facilitator there, or you have the right collaborator, those dreams can flourish into some sort of reality.
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear from you both what skill sets you find to be most essential as you forge your way ahead as an artist. Communication.
Yes, that's exactly
the biggest thing.
That's literally all you're going to do. If you live in the theater, whether you're doing this or not, design specifically, you all you're doing is communicating with people and negotiating with people. And it's not in a bad way. It's just like every where's the light switch? How high is the light switch on the wall? What color is the light switch? Where's the blah, blah, blah? How do you need this? Oh, we only have 15 minutes this morning. I can't get the light switch and the thing in, like blah, blah, blah. Like, where are we? Oh, you say you can't have so-and-so ready for dress rehearsal? Okay, well, what can we have? Like blah, blah, blah. Like, that's your day. That's going to be your day in your life. Just blah, 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 blah. It's great and it's exhausting.
That's very true.
It is.
And also curious to know what informs your artistic approach as designers. So where are you looking for sources of inspiration for your work?
Well, it really depends on the project, and one of the reasons probably also why I do like to create like worlds that have that are very detached from the reality of life is also that because I can be artistically more like freer, and every choice that you make that relates to something contemporary is very politically loaded, and I'm not very good at it. I always put my foot in my mouth. I always end up saying something that I'm not supposed to say, and I don't mean it. I don't even know. So it's like it's really the way that I'm required to relate to people that I'm not very much in control of. Let's put it that way. So when so that's why I really like to just go somewhere else that doesn't exist. So it really depends. Is it Tartuffe? Well, then you just start looking at all of the research, the painting, and this and that. So it really depends. It's really the piece that tells me how to start and what to look for. And if it's a musical, it's one thing. I might start with research that is more just visual. If it's a play that is very introspective, I might look into more representation of a certain character or things like that, and start from a more literary inspiration rather than a visual inspiration. So it really depends where you want to go and what the director is interested in. You have a director first approaching you, telling you about the story that he or she or they want to tell, and so that also informs you how to approach your research and inspiration.
And for you, David?
What Fabio said exactly. I do think there's and I'm curious. I was going to just ask you, and I'm curious for you too, actually. When you wanted to be a fashion designer, was there a designer whose model for you was like, oh, I want to be X, Y, and Z?
No, there were a few that I really liked, but there was one, yes, that I really, 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 really loved. And yes, he was very much based also like in a modern interpretation of history in a little bit of a romantic way. And it was Romeo Gigli, which is not really, hasn't been relevant for a while.
Back. There's little articles and stuff. Do you guys know Romeo Gigli? I'm sorry, I'm mispronouncing the last name.
Gigli, which means lilies.
Oh, I had no idea.
And so, yeah, and yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
What was I going to say? I really liked him, and but then there was, I don't know, there were all the Italians, there were all the French, was Gautier, that was really big, when I was in fashion school from 85 to 88, and so there were all the Japanese, Rei Kawakubo and Yuji Yamamoto, that was really, Kenzo wasn't really my thing, but I really liked him.
And do you find yourself still looking at fashion?
I do, but not very much. I really very much prefer going to the original source. And of course, if you're doing a period piece, a 20th century period piece where fashion was already a business, well, then you look at fashion because that's what it was. They were wearing fashionable clothes. But I don't really like to look at current fashion for interpretation. I like to stay out of that. I always, when I see I can really spot it when other designers do that, and it distracts me. It's like, why is that McQueen there from 2007? I have to do. Why is it there? And it's not that I'm so well informed about all the collection in the world, but certain things it really pop, and I just find it distracting. So I don't want to do that. So
cool. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of case by case basis. There are things that I love. There's artists and photographers and sculptors and stuff that I love and am inspired by, and that kind of make a vibe of a style of performance that I'm interested in, if that makes sense. So like the Martin Margiela shows from the 1990s. I would be very happy if all theater just felt like that and looked like that. Oh, maybe not all theater, but kind of. I feel like the mystery of Ray Kawakubo and Garçon, like the kind of impenetrable, like gorgeous strangeness of that. Like the world's biggest Dries Van Noten fan. Mm-hmm. Like and to me, those shows are beautiful, but also like just the eye, like there's a couple things to take from those places of inspiration, and one is the kind of collision of what the people are and kind of what the in a fashion show, like what the show is, but also just Dries's like eye and hand.
He's talking about Dries Van Noten.
Yeah, sorry, it's Belgian designer who's amazing, just like this color and scale and fabrics are incredible, and so I'm always like, there's just you'll find there's just like an aesthetic that kind of gets you, but there's lots of stuff. There's like crazy James Bidgood films, which was like queer filmmaker in the 60s and 70s, and like that stuff's great, and William Eggleston photos are great, and endlessly like in some sort of beautiful collision of Dries Van Noten and a Harmony Korine film and like a Roma Gigli dress from 1989 and a whatever, is that you just start to find like, well, what story am I telling? What's beautiful about this, and then what's the blender that you put it in that becomes
your own thing.
Your own thing, yeah. I look at photography a ton, just contemporary photographers. There's a great site called American Suburbs X, which does a lot of kind of people that take like sort of banal photos or contemporary photos, and because I am super interested in how in kind of contemporary life and how people wear clothes and stuff like that. Obviously, Instagram's amazing for that, and also there's just like the next thing that I'm excited about I don't know what it is yet. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm also just like really excited. Taking in new visual information is really exciting for me, and so I know there's going to be another theater maker, another filmmaker, another photographer that is going to look at the world in a way that I haven't thought about looking at it yet, and so I'm excited to put that in the blender too.
I love that. So we've also experienced the whole pandemic. We're still in the pandemic. I'm curious to hear from you both what creating art post-pandemic has looked like for you.
What does it look like?
Well, I mean, I already started. I was just jumping the gun.
You started a little bit, and I'm gonna get the setup for you. It's very, very different than before. But I have to say that I was already starting to do this theme before the pandemic. It was. I wasn't just keeping up with the lifestyle, and I ended up doing a lot of regional theater and ballet and opera, and this is always somewhere else, or in a different country or a different state. So I was never at home, and I started really not enjoying that part very much. So I still enjoy the work, fine, but I was always
missing out on something, and or all of a sudden, after years of that, you realize you miss out on friendships. You never with your family when you want to be with your family, and so those things might also be age, but I started really feeling more important than they were before. Also because, when you start, you're really excited about something new and a new play and this and that. And well, there's another play. Well, great, yes, but I'd like to go on holiday with my husband. And so anyway, the pandemic came, and so my wish for just taking a rest was granted, and I started making things. Mm-hmm. So I pulled out my old knitting machine. I learned to use a knitting machine when I was 8 because my mother used to have one. Mm-hmm. So I grew up making sweaters for myself, for my friends, all that. And so it was not something new. It was something that, let's get back to that. And I found it always very soothing.
And before, just to chime in too, before this, you were embroidering your own pieces too.
And then there is also the digital embroidery, which I think that embroidery is, I found that it was a very important element of my design. And so I decided to just do it myself. And first I started, I was telling David earlier, with a Bernina, with a embroidery attachment. It was it takes forever to do anything. But I started that way, that I graduated to a machine. Now that I decided to really go that route, I bought this super duper industrial machine, which I'm very happy. Still haven't learned how to use it really, but so I started doing that, and it was really the time where I, luckily we could all go on unemployment for the very first time, since we can't really do it as freelancers, and the time comes when you have to start going to work, and I felt like I do not want to go back to another show. What am I going to do? A friend of mine who works here at the costume shop at the Metropolitan Opera just called me up in desperation. Fabio, didn't you used to do machine knitting? We have so many knits this season. This was last season. Would you be interested in doing some knits for us? So I just went to see what they wanted, and so I started making knits for them. And I realized that actually is something that I can do, and so I started doing it. And so this is something that it's. That I just completed. So I started also doing things for, this is for the, I shouldn't really be, this is secret.
Yeah, no, you can't. In a few days you might be able to see it.
Tomorrow at 6. Tomorrow at 6 it'll be kosher to show this. No, not yet. This is a few things that I was asked to make for the Bird of Goodman holiday windows.
Oh!
And so I made this little fancy dress that David Howie, who is the head of the
Who's a genius.
He's great. He's great. And he said, I really want you, can you just make me a dress that looks like a pattern, maybe just half of it. So how do you want it? Oh, it surprised me. Okay, this is the it has to fit this mannequin, and handed me over this mannequin. Okay. This mannequin. And so I just made that. I draped it with paper first, and then I embroidered the pattern on it. And
that's felt, you said?
It's felt, yes, like really thick. And of course, after when it was all done, I also sized it a little bit because it needed to be super rigid to just stay in place, being only half of it. That was
What did you use for the sizing?
I just used the spray.
Sizing spray.
I know you shouldn't be using that, but it needed to happen in 0 time, and the spray was the only possible solution.
That's so pretty.
Oh yeah.
And then we made other panels. This is more like big, like 30 inches by, And this is all. He wanted something. So I worked from an illustration, and he said, I want something that is 3-dimensional. So I just did that.
Design school. I don't know.
I know. I'm like
This one too is great. So this is, they're not looking that great because
So you should all go check the windows.
Yeah, they're gonna be mounted on a rigid surface so that the background is all crumpled.
Mhm.
And what was really great about this is that I made that little pin cushion, and I made it as an applique, but we wanted it to be three-dimensional, so I devised something that I was very proud of, and I made first the just a little tomato as a padded applique, so I could have the ridges on the tomato. And then I used that over a padded thing so that I could get
A
extra
little bit of
dimensions so that the ridges were not flat with the background. So it was like a double padded. So that was that. Then there is and this is all of the little drops are also just embroidered, and I made sure that since I knew they were just hanging over nothing, I made sure that I digitized a lot of
How
understructure.
big is that umbrella like? In real
That
life?
umbrella is small. The just umbrella is
Okay.
like 12 inches, something like that. So this is a smaller panel than the other. Maybe it's like 24 by 15. So these were also for Burger of Goodman, but this was a winner a few years ago. And it was all about, the theme was Botanist Library, Summer of Love, 1967. It was all this like flower power, the fashion was like some flower power inspired hippie design. And the whole thing was these open books, and it was all soft sculpture. And on one side, they had representation of a plant or a flower, and everything was a psychedelic. And on the other side, there was the name of the plant rendered in a psychedelic way. And then I made all the sleeves, which were like about this big, but I made it with my old machine, which had a very small embroidery surface, so a lot of registrations were so laborious to make. And they were all three-dimensional, they were all like free-floating objects. So this is one of the pages of the book.
So that's all.
It's all embroidered.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. The green part is the fabric, which is a velvet.
Yeah.
And so this was great because the writing, what's embroidered is the negative space. So at first I tie-dyed the piece of
And are you
fabric.
dyeing it yourself?
Yeah.
As well? Okay.
And so I dyed it to create the white, and then I embroidered the negative space. And the other one also, it's just, it's all like this raised satin embroidery with a little bit of two-dimensionality. And somebody else did the actual flower. More. This one, it was the same year. I was asked to. So this friend of mine who was in charge of these windows, she just said, "There's this other window that people don't know what to do. Is for Chanel, for one of the street windows for Chanel, and they want to have like white flowers. Can you just do something?" So I really felt like I really had this imposter syndrome.
Because it's Chanel.
Yeah, exactly. And so what I'm gonna do? So back in 1997, I was in Colombia, and I bought these stamps to stamp like flowers and leaves, and I just hoarded them. I had never used them, so maybe it's the time to take those out. And then I made some roses, and I put together this little thing. And I just showed her. She's my friend, so if it's not working, she'll just tell me. Didn't hear anything. And afterwards, she told me, says, "Well, I just took your photograph. I photoshopped it in a circle, and Carl loved it." Okay. So the next picture is the picture of the window.
Oh.
And that's what it turned out. which is
Wow.
literally that thing repeated.
Gorgeous. Oh.
And the crown is like maybe like this large.
Oh.
So that was good. It's totally improvised.
Wow.
It's really so it came out great.
In a situation like this, it seems you had room to like just create. When you're working with a big brand like that, how do you navigate the collaboration where you have Chanel and its legacy, or like Bergdorf and its
Well,
sort of
you know, I
identity?
let my friend
deal with
Yeah.
that. Communicating.
yeah.
But I will say, sorry, but I will say that a mark of a good collaboration is when someone isn't micromanaging you. Do you know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
Like when someone is just, they know that they're going to get, they're going to say, oh, a little bit more like this, or we can't use that one, or whatever. But that sense of, and this is a good also as a collaborator, you're asking someone to bring themselves to the work.
Yeah, and let me add to that, especially in costume shops, when I would return to a regional theater costume shop, so you get to work with the same drapers, sometimes I would really notice what a draper was really good at, what they really had fun working with. So I would actually design for that draper. And some of them would totally notice, I know you designed this for me. And you can see their big smile. And then they give you the best work, of course, without even asking, because they see they appreciate their work. So that's the most important thing.
Yeah, even when things are going badly, micromanaging is
It's
never
not-
going to get you a good result.
No, you have when things go bad, you really have to just step back and say, okay, let's see what this person can do.
Right.
And you can change your design, do something, and make the most out of what's available, which could be something that you weren't aware of.
Yeah.
It's a good way to learn from other people. So this was one of the very first ones. This is one of those that I did with Bernina. And I'm really proud of the buttons.
Did
This
you
one
hand
was
do the buttons?
well, no, I did them with the machine, and then I cut them.
covered the
I cut them, and I had the. So this was for a production of with Hannah of Dangerous
At
Liaisons
center stage.
at Center Stage, right? Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, this one was crazy. It was
Literal gasp.
And you can't even see. I'm looking at all the details because it's not
also
overexposed.
the big monster in the. Okay, that was this dancer that had to just do a flip in the air, and then the costume had to just be ripped off of him in a second.
Wow.
And had something else underneath. It was, yes. So yeah, this was a production for Ballet Arizona of Firebird, and the first thing that the choreographer wanted something that was post-apocalyptic, fantastical. So there I started looking at the Mad Max movies. 1970s. I really started landing into 1970s science fiction. For some reason, I took that again to the wormhole, and I really stayed there. And I just did that. This was one of the dresses that I made for the ensemble girls.
And this is all out of leather because they're moving and dancing in
It's
it.
actually my husband product placement. And my husband is a textile designer, has his collection. This is a fabric from his collection that is actually a composite of leather waist and polyurethane. And so it's something that is like a fake leather, but it's like 50% is actual leather. So it's really great, and it embroiders like a dream. So there is a metallic version and also other versions that are more like just leather.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very fun. This is Hamlet, and that was done on the original Bernina. This is the very first time I tackled the embroidery, and as you can see, everything is very small, and then paste it together. So there too, just see what I could do, what a machine could do, and I just did something with that. Same production. This was a Hartford stage. This is also for Ballet Arizona. This was A Midsummer Night's Dream. And the reason why I included this because it's really gives you a good idea of what you can do with the embroidery, because I did a lot of different things there. Those, how should I call it, elements, panels on the on the tool. The two they're actually all appliques and embroidery on felt. So they were actually moving like that, flapping around.
Wow.
So when I was doing it, I was just crossing my fingers because, like, how is this going to behave when they? But it really worked out. Everything was falling into place as a dream, so it worked out. Thank God. Oh, this is something that I did for Moulin Rouge on Broadway. It's the back of the coat.
Wow. And for something like this, is the designer sending you the image, or
Yes,
you're
it always depends. Sometimes the designer sends me, "Can you have this illustration? Can you please render it as an embroidery?" And there's still a lot of choices to make.
because he's picking up the thread colors.
Exactly, and all of the the stitch. This is very, what I say, machine-y, but that's what we wanted. She needed an illustration to become an embroidery, so it was more like render a painting with thread, which machine embroidery does very easily. What's harder is try to mimic hand embroidery and period embroidery, which is what really gives me most pleasure.
Sorry to ask a very basic question, but so the machine, you have an illustration on the computer, when you say digital embroidery, and then the machine just...
So, yeah.
I'm just wondering how it works.
Yeah. You work with software. So you develop the whole design in your software. So it's like with vectors and and then you just choose all the type of stitches, everything, and you can actually do, and something that I really like to do when I have to try to create an 18th century type of coat, instead of using automated functions of the software, I really like to go there with my pen and do every stitch as if I were doing it by hand. The good thing is that I do spend a long time. It might take me even longer to digitize that flower than do it. But then you repeat that flower many times, and that's where you can do it. And also you can have all these elements in your bank, so to speak, and then you can make a whole new embroidery, cutting and pasting, and make it something larger, something bigger, or make it flower bigger, flower smaller, all of that. So it's really it's really great and fun.
Thank you.
And then the machine just does what you call the stitch out.
So the longer you do it, the more of a national treasure you are.
There are very few people. Okay, so now so David, for you, I'm curious to know for yourself.
I did nothing like that.
Oh, but you've done something.
Well, but you had a sketch. I didn't bring any of the sketches. You have sketches.
Yes.
That's gone. That's pre-pandemic.
But you're still designing, so you have projects here and there.
I mean, I'm supposed to do a play now. I'll tell you about it
in a few months. You never know when the skill sets that you built like years ago might come handy, right? Or you might pivot into that space. All right.
Okay.
So David.
Yeah, I mean, my pandemic journey, I didn't pivot necessarily. I think what I tried to do, as we all tried to do for a year and a half, was like not kill ourselves. So congratulations, everybody. I did go back to. I've always liked to draw the human figure. I like life drawing. I like collecting life drawing. I like other people's life drawings. Hadn't done it in forever. It's a thing when I went to school. It's really like the thing that kind of set my brain free. It was the first time I'd ever drawn on a model, like a life model. And I don't. Do you guys do that here in drawing? Like, do you have like a life model class, or you do life model drawings?
Costume designers too.
Yeah, it will blow your mind. Or blew my mind. And I'm just projecting my experience on you. So I did a few things in the pandemic. I got to spend much more time with Dede in lots of Zooms. I wouldn't say, someone was asking me, I wouldn't say like politics is my passion particularly, but I'm someone who is invested in, weirdly, because I'm not super social, but I'm invested in like the kind of creation of and maintenance of kind of actual community, by which I just mean vehicles for people to communicate with each other. And over the course of the pandemic, we worked together to create a space for young, rising BIPOC designers to advocate for them, and B, also just create a kind of larger community that actually was rooted in some actual relationship building, and that is something that's always been a kind of passion of mine, and I had a lot of time to help with that. So I that was one thing that really selfishly saved me during the pandemic, just like a place to put my brain and to feel like I was adding some good to what is felt, especially then, like the most atrocious world. And I started to draw. And actually, once I really tried to, I have someone who works in my kind of set studio, who's worked with me for over a decade, off and on. And when it started to be clear that, you know, this was going to be a while, I just sort of made a vow to myself to I was like, his name's Tim. I was like, I'm keeping Tim employed. I'm just going to keep Tim employed as long as I can. Like, that's what I'm going to do. And so that was good. It gave me structure. It gave him some structure. It gave him some income. It gave me a reason to, at 10 o'clock, like go to Zoom and like look at the things we were doing. But there was a point at which we just ran out of things. You know, I was like, I'd taken all, like shepherded all the little, you know, like, well, maybe this is going to happen. And, you know, there was a point at which it was just like, there's nothing we can do until we get back to work. And my cat, we have two cats, they were brothers, one of them died, as though to underscore the horribleness of the event. And I just kind of didn't know what to do. And I started drawing. I started, you know, at that point there were a bunch of live drawing classes on the internet, and I just did like 2 a week, but it really was like enough to kind of, and it's all on Procreate now, like it just can't handle having like pencils and markers and stuff. Is so confusing and is a barrier, more than confusing. It's a barrier for me to do it. It's like, oh, well, I don't have my Sharp, I don't have my, and it's just like I have my iPad and my stylus and I can do whatever, which is really, which was great for me. And it really gave me a chance to kind of connect with other people and also just do something really basic, which I really love to do. We were talking a little bit earlier, one of the things that's really sad, the thing that someone asked me, like, where are you the happiest? And the truth is that I'm like the happiest. This is true for both set and costume design. I'm happy often in the theater, making theater, but when I'm really happy, like I often like cut apart lace, right, to like lay on jackets and stuff. And like when everybody's gone home in the shop, or you know, they like put you in like Eric's, they like put you in the fitting room. So it's like kind of quiet and kind of away from people. And you have like a pile of some lace and trims that you like have a hunch, if you like start cutting them apart, they're gonna like be the thing you want them to be. And like the garment on a dress form, and just like some time to start cutting and collaging and making a new thing. And for me, there's so many things that are exciting about that, because I don't make things, you know. I just don't make anything. I spend a lot of time pointing at things and telling other people to make things. But when I have the chance to actually use my hands, it's really profound. But I tried to survive the pandemic, and I also tried to be as honest as I could in the places that I was at about how I was doing in that. In some part to give permission to other people to talk about how they're doing. P.S. Everybody was doing very badly. But also because I actually just wanted to come clean with myself about how it was going. Because when I first got back to work, it did not go well. And I wasn't in a good place. Things weren't great. And so I just like trying to negotiate that in a way that felt, you know, I spent 50 years muscling through my life and this job, and it catches up with you. You know, it's like that thing where you're just like, what the F am I doing? And why am I doing this? So I'm muscling through the part that I should be experiencing. And we're all ambitious people, and the job takes a lot of energy, and there's a lot of, there's stuff that's, it's not a 9 to 5, it stays with you. That's the kind of beautiful thing about it. But there's a point at which you have to just also live your life in a way that is sustainable.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How do you stay true to your aesthetic and design while working with very particular clients?
Good question.
Well, I tend to relate to what I'm asked to do as like parameters rather than limitations. So I just see, okay, this is what it needs to be. Like, for instance, that was also something that I was going to say when you have a drawing or sketch. What choices you make to dress a person to become what is rendered in that drawing. It could be, there are a million approaches. There are not two approaches that are the same. And so I really try to make the most out of what these parameters are. And just sometimes the parameters are really wide, so you just feel like doing whatever. Sometimes they're very narrow, but still, there is like, there is something that's called quality that you can still, even if aesthetically is one thing, well, then I latch on to quality and let's make this like something that is really good, like precious, made well, or designed well, or so it really depends. That's what I do. I still basically, so in a nutshell, I still try to keep up my standards. That's all within the aesthetic that I have to operate with.
I think you just have to be honest with yourself, though. That is it about your aesthetic or about the story?
Right.
Is it in service of what is at hand, right? And I think if those things are clashing, then you need to sort of take a step back and understand why you're on the project, right? So for me as a costume designer, is it ultimately about putting my idea on stage, or is it about the story that we're trying to tell as a community?
Exactly.
And that sort of helps me to drive my choices.
I also think you just grow to learn. I mean, I think we all have different, one of the reasons maybe that fashion wasn't right, but costume design felt better, right, is it's not like I see the world in this way. It's like the pleasure is I get to see the world in lots of different ways, but there's a limit to that, right? And so when I was in school, like the thing about being a designer was like, I'm applying this style to this text or this style to this text, and I'm not kind of into that. Like, I think that's just like, well, then who are you? Mm-hmm. But I do think I love doing real dirty, strange clothes. I love this thing. I love this thing. I love this thing. I don't love everything. And so I like that working with different people. I like their particular, I like that, Sam Gold asked me to do X, Y, and Z, that this person asked me to do this kind of thing. This person asked me to do this kind of thing. Sometimes you get into a situation where someone's asking you to do something that you turn out like not to be passionate about. And those are the things, or not, like, you're just not on the same page. And those are the situations that tend not to last more than one show. Do you know?
Gotcha.
Where it's just like, oh, this isn't great for me.
Also that, right?
Yeah. And the thing, I guess the thing that I try to live by and also encourage other people to live by is like, don't, it doesn't matter what the budget is, it doesn't, all that stuff. None of that matters. What matters is, it matters separately.
Right.
What matters is, it's a different thing.
Yeah.
What matters about whether you should do a job or not is if you think you're gonna be in a situation where you can bring your best self to that. And that doesn't mean that the person is a bad person or it's like, I have a director that I've tried a couple times to work with, I really like this person, like, they're amazing, they're fun, we have great dinners together, like, it's really fun. It's not about that. It's that at the end of the day, the thing that they're asking me to bring is, that's not what I do best. And those there's no winning those situations, and there's also because it's just deadening. You know what I mean? It's just like a bummer. Every day's a bummer, and this is like that is. The message for the future: don't spend your life where every day is a bummer. Like it's not life is too short.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You have to fight too hard.
Yeah,
Maybe it's not
like
the
2
right
days
time.
could be a bummer. You know, you have a bummer week. You know what I mean? Like it's not all going to be fun, but it is just like if the whole thing, and if you're not proud of the thing, then don't do it.
And that goes back to you just saying, just forging ahead, right? And where you had to, like pandemic-wise, you had to then take a step back in finding yourself through painting and drawing.
Yeah, just reconnect a little bit with like what the
artist.
moral center is to make those decisions. Yeah, for sure.
And then that got you to Almost Famous.
Yeah, Almost Famous is something we actually did pre-pandemic. I mean, it's actually interesting. Almost Famous got super bad reviews. It's a really good show. I had a great time doing it. It's an incredible company, and that's a situation where the director basically was just like, I don't really understand about clothes. Just like do something. Great, because I got it. I understand about clothes. It was really fun. It's a beautiful movie, and it's a show that I just decided we had kind of our cast, what is still basically our cast, from kind of the first workshop that I was involved in. It's changed a little bit, but what I'll say is it's a show. I kind of like inviting chance into my process, and I just started. I approached that show by just starting to shop things that I thought were like cool, and figured I would like start, like I never colored the show. These are renderings that I did after the fact, actually. I didn't color anything. I just was like, I'm just gonna like find stuff and make stuff. And then, you know, in the fitting room, things start to be like, oh, that jacket looks great on that person. Cool. Well, then there's this person with that. Oh, it's like, this finishes that outfit. Okay, you're kind of that person. Like, I really let the objects lead me to, I spent, you know, essentially 3 years on Etsy, just like every week I'd go and be like, what's under $250? That's, you know, that looks cool, and made a show out of it, basically. This is Soleil Pfeiffer, the incredibly beautiful Soleil Pfeiffer, who is plays Penny Lane, who's very different, obviously, than Kate Hudson. Also beautiful, tiny, white. Soleil, huge, mixed race, gorgeous. And we wanted to kind of find our own vibe with Penny, and in some ways it necessitated it. Her body's very different. She's just a very different person. And she was, by the time we did the New York production, Soleil, you know, she knew I was going to make her look good. She felt good in the clothes. She felt good about the things I was bringing her. And so I could kind of I could really play with her in the fitting room and be like, I don't know, like, what about these? And some things we put on were like, nope, not those. But then some things we could put on, it was like, ooh, that's, you know, we had a crocheted I bought these great crocheted pants this summer from Urban Outfitters. And I was like, I don't know. She's like, I don't know either. She like, put them on. We were like, these are amazing. Let's turn them into shorts. And so we turned them into shorts. And then she was like, I'm feeling crochet. And I was like, amazing. We're feeling crochet. So we made this crocheted top for her that was just really fun, and really fun to kind of find that way with her, and with her trust, you know, and just to like, we just had the time to play. The code is a very famous thing from the movie, and we did one version of it in San Diego, which was like good, but not great. And I just wanted it to be more magical. And again, this is like, time is great. P.S. I had 2.5 years of sitting at home trying not to kill myself, that I was like, and then every once in a while I'd think about that coat, which was nice. And so I just wanted to make something that was related to what the coat was, so that people weren't like, where's our coat? But just had a ton more depth. Sorry. A ton more depth and a ton more history, and a ton more texture, so that if you're sitting even in the middle or the back of the orchestra, you still have a sense about what this thing is, and you can't quite ever, nothing is finished, you know, it's like the kind of design goes in and out. Love it all. So that's what we made. We made that coat, which is it's like dyed like 4 times by Jeff Fender. It was embroidered before it's dyed, then it was like, some of that embroidery was painted, some of the embroidery was done after, then it was painted, Then we sort of beaded it, but with different kinds of chain and like jewelry findings, so that none of it, like along the hem, I found this great chain that had these like blue beads in it. I hadn't drawn blue beads, but I was like, blue's cool. And we laid it out, we're like, oh, blue's really cool. And I was like, I don't know, broken, just like do a thing along the hem. And she did a little bit of it, and I was like, cool. So let's imagine that the like hem of this coat is like a Morse code sentence. So it's not real Morse code, but it was just like, let's make that rhythm be the rhythm of the chain.
And this is with Kathy at Tricorn.
This is with Kathy at Tricorn and her incredible staff at Tricorn.
This is the drawing of the coat. No, that's William. Those are those two guys. Both of those shirts, those shirts are so
Very cool. I don't mean like I'm cool, but I just mean like we found two incredibly cool shirts on Etsy, and
What do you do then for a show like Broadway where you find something on Etsy or you find vintage? How are you then doubling it up?
Yeah, right. So they need doubles, sometimes triples, and then understudies need them and swings need them. So it makes vintage actually complicated. In some cases, we find things that are like vintage, adjacent, so that they're all kind of related. And as long as that character is wearing any version of those things, it looks cool. For the Michigan shirt and for the Jeff BB embroidered shirt, we ended up making doubles. We just tried to find things that had as much of the character of the vintage things as possible, and then embroidered them or screen printed them to look like the vintage things. And then those are the three Band-Aids. That green coat that Alexia is wearing is one of the first things I found on Etsy. It's like this gorgeous, just crazy suede, has like a sun in it. And again, it's like colors I wouldn't have drawn. It's like a weird coral with like rust and forest. Like I would never have drawn this coat ever in a million years. And that was what I want. I would never have drawn the 1972, swirly Henley. I would never have done any of those things.
If you hadn't seen the...
So it's just, that's the pleasure of just like, all right, I'm just gonna, at the end of this process, there's gonna be some things that I didn't know about before that are gonna be in the show. And and I had the luxury of time to do that. This is A Doll's House Part 2. This is actually one of those times where I got to really just like sit and you have an afternoon where you're like, well, it's got to be something. And so this is that was the drawing, and then that's Lori. That's the dress. So the first thing Lori made the boots do. The first thing that Lori said to me, Lori Metcalf, who's playing this part, I'd done a show with her before. She hates dressing up. She hates dressing up. She looks really good when she dresses up. She hates it. She can't. She's just literally like, I can't move my arm. So she said, so she was very scared about not moving her arms. And so all of that is stretch lace that we then applied other lace to. And then I could tell it was like a challenge. And I was like, haha, you met your match. She's like, well, am I going to be able to get down on the floor with this? And I was like, 100%. Because literally nothing makes me happier than someone in like a fancy dress, just like sprawling on the floor. I would just like think that's so great. So yeah, so she, the first thing she did in the fitting was like lay down on the floor. And that was really fun. And that's Julie White who ended up replacing her. But all of that, of just figuring out all that trim and all that, that was like a really happy hour and a half of my life that I still treasure.
How do you, just going back to this, how are you able to play around with patterns and trim to create the sense that you want? Because here, with color and texture, you really create beautiful lines.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that, frankly, is like, I'm also obsessed kind of with the 1920s, so I look at a lot of 1920s clothes, and I think there's a real, like, especially in what Julie's wearing, there's a real like 1920s kind of color vibe and texture vibe in it. So part of it is just like looking at stuff. I just don't understand, like, every color goes together and all patterns go together. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't live in a world where that's not true. So and sometimes it really freaks directors out. Do you know what I mean? Like, sometimes they're really, and Jeremy, who did Almost Famous, very early on, he was like, I don't like a lot of pattern. I was like, tough. Then too bad for you, because you're going to be an athlete. Like, I love things that just live on the edge of not quite working and kind of balance. So that's part of it. And then they used what was nice and also terrifying, but thankfully it was good photo. It became the campaign for the show, the photos of the clothes, which was, again, really great, but, horrifying. Because we've all had pictures taken in dress rehearsals that are terrifying, so. Oh yeah, laying out that jacket was a really happy day. The other thing is, I'll tell you, this was a new play, and it's like I didn't know exactly how it was going to go. Like, I just wanted to make things for her so that she had layers to play with. But it really became, she came in with like a fur capelet that was a vintage thing, and then she had this on, and the kind of revelation of the thing that was underneath it really became like a moment, but not through. We never talked about there being like a moment of revelation. It just was like, you just put the things in the room and then smart people figure it out. Yeah. This one, clearly the 1920s is a huge influence. This was a SpongeBob musical, which was a lot of fun.
And you did set and costumes.
I did the
so how
scenery
did what was your process like through the development? Did you start with the sets and then into costumes?
We started with the people. We started thinking about, kind of both in tandem. Again, this is a show where we did like 5 years of workshops before we did a big production of it. And the kind of vibe of the show, like figuring out what that was, what our rules were and stuff like that. That was the part of the workshops. And the very first workshop, because there was no script or music when we did the first workshop, was just like does he have to be yellow? Does he have to be a square? Like, do his eyes have to be big? Like, what can you take away from SpongeBob and still have people be like, that's SpongeBob? It turns out quite a lot, actually. But we didn't want to, does Squidward have to be blue? Like, does Patrick need a pointy head? And so we took some time to explore all that stuff, which was great.
For that, were you just bringing images or sketches?
We did real. The first time we did it, we actually did like real costume fittings with Squidward. I'm not sure we did Sandy. We did Squidward, SpongeBob, and Patrick because they were. She's a squirrel, but she actually kind of looks the most like a person. So those were the thing. Like, if we could figure out those three characters, then we'd start to find our roadmap. And we did. We had Chuck built a couple different wigs, and we just Nickelodeon was paying for this, but we just took the time to like do a bunch of fitting photos and take a look and see what felt weird. It was really fun. And this was something, I feel like Tina was like my version of the person that just like, I don't know, just make something. Where Tina was like, I don't, just
go for it.
Just do something. And actually what you don't want to wait for the person to say that. Like, I just was thinking like, I don't know if you feel like this. I feel like I don't, there's like a thing where, like you're waiting for the director to give you notes after a time. It's like, I just do my notes. Like, they're my own notes. I was like, I got it. I'm seeing it. I got it. I'm going to fix it.
I'll check in still with the director, but usually, you already know what you need to fix and what you need to
invariably, it should be that the director is saying, hey, are we? You're like, yes, and it's coming on Tuesday, and don't worry about this, and we're reshopping this already. That's a SpongeBob sketch. That's Sandy. Not a squirrel. That's Patrick.
Which I think the idea of just fixing too means the work can be so precious that you're not afraid to get in there and like futz with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's also why I just like sketches are like, it's a beginning place.
You start,
so that's Squidward's. Those are his sea anemones. That was his. So that coat was all. This Eric Winterling built most of this stuff, and P.S. The person that wanted to be an Annie when he was young also wanted to be in Chorus Line. And so that, this was like every MGM musical and a chorus line. Like that. And the thing that was fun about SpongeBob, it was like a place for different fantasies. Like this number was a fantasy, and then I could move on to another fantasy, which was really, doesn't happen all the time and was really great. But this is all hand-beaded and was really fun. It's only because there was one of them. If they'd all, we couldn't have, the anemones were like a much simpler situation. The Act 2 starts with a bunch of pirates, so these are my pirate sketches. This was like, Tina called her Punkfish, which just irritated me, but that's such a dumb name. But Onika, who was the dancer, who was this person, she was a very late hire to the ensemble, and she had like some other thing, and I can't remember what I'd drawn for her, but Tina was like, "You need to meet Onika because I don't think she's the vibe of what you drew," and you're just like. There's a part of you that's like, but I'm almost done. Like, we're having to do it. Why is this happening? But I met her and I knew exactly what she meant. And I didn't draw, this isn't a napkin sketch, but I was like, oh, she needs to feel like Grace Jones, in Mad Max beating up Keith Haring or something. And it was literally, I just met her and I was like, copy, yep, that's exactly what you mean. Which was really fun. That was nobody really, so some people did, but he's the news anchor guy, and so it's like a TV test pattern. That's not, yeah, right? Nobody got there's a clownfish, there was somebody covered in bubbles. It was really fun. This was, so it's all tool netting, it's all like super gathered tool netting. I know it's insane, but it's really light. And those are Comme des Garçons shoes. Thank you for that. But the other thing about the rough is that, so Eric, who's so sweet and a really incredible costume craftsman, this is not his vibe. Like the tailcoat is kind of his vibe, you know what I mean? But like he doesn't get this. But he's good. So he's like, he'll do it. But you have to be like, and then I won, then, and then, and then. And so, we needed the clown to have a big crazy ruff, and Eric came in one morning, and on his way to work, there was like a deflated, birthday balloon bouquet by the garbage, and he brought it in, and he was like, "Would this be good for the ruff?" And I was like, "You did it!" Yeah, it was really amazing.
Such great collaboration.
Yeah, it was such I really felt like my baby had left the nest.
I'm curious to know that just for myself. Like, why did you go for the texture with the layers of tulle versus just painting it?
I just feel like you can't beat that. You can't I wanted it to be light. He needed to be. I didn't know what he was going to do, but I assumed he was going to need to be super mobile and run around and dance. So I thought it should be light. I had seen something sort of like it, and I was like, oh, tulle, that's cool. But also, it's like you can't.
And what's under there?
Yeah, what's under?
It's not very much. It's all on a kind of sort of like a. It's not buckram, but a kind of plastic buckram frame, and then sort of nothing.
Was it cut or trimmed to create the shape of
so it all stuck out a little bit, and they kind of shaped it into that shape. And then I was, when you have that much texture, it's like the only good polka dot is going to be a fur. So I made a fur polka dot. And then this is a goldfish, and then this is one of the things where I was like, I don't know, something like this. And then, I keep going.
Oh,
yeah. So this is me in Eric's fitting room, but I found that the top is a sweater that I found on Etsy. Then the bottom, another thing. Oh, the hood and the two sleeves are like a Esprit sweater that somebody found at Salvation Army. And then those ended up being a towel, not a blanket. But this was just I was like, I don't know, let's just find something that kind of feels like this, and we'll figure out what it is. So that's where we started. There it is, kind of in process. So the first, actually go back. So then in Chicago, those two balls that he had on his. They were hard balls, covered in stuff. And you can even tell in the fitting photo, it's that doesn't look super comfortable. So after Chicago, we cut those. Now you see the towel. So there's two towels that we bought at Target and dyed, and then put ruffled trim on one of them. And then for Broadway, we remade those balls as kind of collapsible ruffles. And those ruffles are made out of sports jersey and tulle, and so they're light and sort of stupid, and it was really fun. Yeah, we put pom-poms on them, just was really dumb and really fun.
How much time did you have from Chicago to New York? Because to revision all this year and a half.
Yeah, we didn't change tons. we changed SpongeBob a lot, and then we just had some time to like fine tune. We knew his sleeves like kept in. They would like hit people's heads, and he had to like dance around like this. So we knew the balls were on the chopping block. Oh yeah, this is the mayor. So then I also got to make just like some fun, nice clothes. Speaking of Chanel, we thought she was fancy and would wear Chanel, but in those colors. Yeah, keep going. And then she had a big coat on. So we made a kind of Chanel tweed by like piecing together different fabrics, and then that's a close-up. There's also the Chanel Couture that like a couple years before it had done this like crazy like quilted sleeves, so I just stole those and did them in red. And then, yeah, fun, right? And then that coat is all neoprene, so it's like again like a big scoop of fabric because it's underwater, but also it's just really light and makes a great shape, and you don't have to do anything to it.
Wow.
Neoprene's
Different show.
in Act 3. I know. Did you guys stay for Act 3? No one remembers this part. I just was like, and then you're also asked to do these things. This is a production of Othello I did downtown.
New York Theatre Workshop?
A New York Theatre Workshop, yeah, with Daniel Craig and David Oyelowo.
Oh wow.
Because sometimes you just like do army people clothes. And a lot of their tattoos. There's Daniel, David. You know, just like shitty stuff that looks like real people are wearing them. I love that. Yeah. This photo I feel like is like a cross is like kind of real and kind of theatrical, and was again like took some time to figure out how to link the three Allisons, which are in kind of red and blue / kind of stripes, without it just feeling too on the nose, but enough that you felt like you understood who those people were, and was really fun and nourishing. And this, I encourage it. The only reason I'm including this is because Dede likes it, which makes me so happy. But this was a play called Airline Highway.
Oh yeah.
I assisted that. We did
it. Oh, you did here. I was like,
I actually
feel like I would have remembered.
I love this show.
Yeah. So this was just
character.
really, I mean, for me, the like bad choices that people make when they're dressing themselves, especially for a party, and especially when the party's gone on way too long, that's like, I mean, I love Drew's and but also like, what Crocs did you put on with your ugly shorts? Like, man. So that's what this show was very much about that.
Is this the Steppenwolf?
Yeah. And I just wanted it to feel like they were making all those choices. Which was really fun.
Yay. Oh, thank you so
That's me.
much. So we just have a little bit of time left, so I'm going to open up the floor for questions from you all.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Anna, and first off, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day or week to come talk to us.
Yes.
I've had the opportunity, I understand now, to experience your beautiful work, and it's definitely inspired me, influenced me over the years. So thank you so much for coming to talk to us. You were talking more specifically about some names that I guess I'm not too familiar with earlier about things that influenced you, but I always love to ask people, what other media do you think influenced you? Like maybe like growing up, like books or TV shows or movies. Are there things that you look back from like maybe your childhood or your adolescence and you're like, that really stuck with me, or that really inspired me as an artist or as a designer? Because I love to be able to go and experience things that inspired other people.
Oh, nice. What about you?
Well, yeah, I mean, well, I have to say the two muses were both my mother and my grandmother. And so my mother passed away when I was still a child, so I also have a little bit of a idealized, image of that, and also of what she would tell me. But I remember as a kid, I would really specifically ask her, because she had all these stories in the 1940s and the 1950s, before I was born and all of that, and I would specifically ask her what she would wear and ask her to describe to me outfits, or my grandmother My grandma was born in 1900, and I remember listening to her description of some 1920s evening. And it was green velvet, and they had these points, and they had the tassel. I still remember it. It's like, and when you just danced, you just moved around. Like, and then she would tell me when, they crop their hair, and then when, all of these things. Or even I remember once I went to visit some old aunt of hers, was this old lady. The first thing that she said, that was with my mother, first thing that she told me, she's one of those ladies who in her youth wore those big hats. Tell me more. So those are really the things that really remain. And so to me, I was really trying to, as I fantasized so much about oldie-timey, and so it's me to recreate those and really visualize them, and that's always been something that was basically fun for me. And then of course, like I was saying before, just big, fantastic, crazy world like that, like anything really. But yes, movies. There are some movies that are absolute favorite movies. Like there are some movies that actually cemented some aesthetic that for a particular period. I immediately go to 18th century. There are two movies which I later found out. One was from the 70s, and the other one from the 2000 something. After I took a picture, I realized they were made by the same costume designer. Yeah. It's Barry Lyndon and Marie Antoinette.
Yes.
And looking at those dresses, there obviously there's so much interpretation. It's not really, they're not museum pieces type of movies. But the way she interprets it, it just gives so much life to the character. It's so, I don't know, I was just mesmerized. So those two, and then, there are others that, Fellini movies, and which are also like very diverse. There are some very realistic, like hyper realistic, or other that are really completely fantastic. And but the Visconti movies, love those. And those are actually really quite on the spot, really realistic. You really can breathe the air, and so movies, a lot of movies. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, the films of Derek Jarman for me were like a huge thing for me because they were. It's like kind of where Sandy Powell started. She started, I think Caravaggio was her first, but the earlier ones, like just. They were like a kind of combination of like grand, like theater-y, fuck you-y, punky, like that, like history, but like, with middle fingers out, which is a place that I feel really comfortable. Sorry for middle fingers, but those movies were great. Yeah, Piero Tosi and
Piero Tosi. Well,
the sort of great Torelli. If you guys don't know this name, there's a costume shop in Rome, right, called Torelli, that builds and from which many of the kind of most amazing, especially period clothes, come from.
I met Piero Tosi at Torelli's.
No, that's like I don't know what that's like. That's a big deal. But just consume. I mean, there's just consume whatever. You know what I mean? Like, there's going to be a thing that is going to be exciting to you. My history is my history and is very specific. I can go on and on and on about all those things. I think they're all amazing. But on some level, I also think like just find your own things. Like, just whatever you find, just go deep. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The thing that I told, I find you're doing this, which is cool. So I see that and I appreciate it. But, I like this thing. What is that person like? What are those people like? What is the thing that influenced them? What's the thing that influenced them? Just follow those trees. In some ways, I'm not a good person to follow because I'm already such a synthesizer. I'm a person that's already just like brought in a bunch of different things. But go to the artists that go look at Dries, go look at Romeo Gischli, go look at, sorry, I keep mispronouncing his name, go look at, Roberto Capucci, go look at Ray Calcubo, go look at Yamamoto, go look at Galliano, or not. It's a complicated story, but I will say, if you have the patience for Galliano, that since he's taken over Margiela, which I personally thought was going to be a literal nightmare, it's been better than I thought it was going to be. And over the pandemic, those collections, he started doing films talking about their 35-minute documentaries where he's putting together those collections with his team, and they're unbelievably great. They're incredible. Anyway, those go find, Calusur, right? Go find all the crazy weird things that you love. I mean, there's so much good design happening right now in the world.
But I think that's important though. Go to the source, right?
Yeah.
Don't just stop at the first. Or
Yeah. Just always go.
Yeah.
The thing that I did at school, which is in some ways how I got I feel like I educated myself, and so it's different now. And so you just have to find a way to pivot, which is that I would go to I'm looking for this photographer, and I go to the library, and then I would just do the 3 shelves before that person, and just and literally judge a book by its cover. Oh, that spine is cool. Who's that? Oh, what's that? Who's that person? I don't know who those people are. So I'm gonna take 6 books back to my library table. So go to the library, just find a way to trick yourself into looking at other people that you didn't set out to do, follow the Google link that isn't the Google link that you want to follow. Follow that Google link, just trick yourself into discovering things.
Other questions?
Thank you.
Charlie?
So we kind of talked about it a little earlier in terms of sustainability with SpongeBob. But I just wanted to ask about, y'all's processes on promoting sustainability and having that conflict between budget or what you can find with sustainability.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say very honestly that of all the things that I worry about in the course of a show, if you're talking about kind of real ecological sustainability, that is not super high on my list, and that's just partly how I get through a process. I don't say it very proudly. I just say it very realistically. So I like reusing things when I can reuse things. I don't have a process like Danielle's, which is really beautiful, and in which her studio is also really dedicated to that. And I haven't found a way to incorporate that for me in a really day-to-day way. So that's how.
Can you explain Danielle's?
Yeah, I mean, Danielle Worley, is kind of not designing anymore, has sort of moved on to landscaping and stuff, is an incredible set designer. For me, it's heartbreaking she's not designing anymore. I think she's a genius. And had a very particular point of view about the world. But she is really, her studio, she's really dedicated to sustainable products. She doesn't use foam core, she uses cardboard, she doesn't use spray paint, she's just
old boxes of Triscuits will be turned into part of the model.
Yeah, totally, and that's amazing.
And this is Danielle Worley for anyone who wants to promote.
Yeah, and that's just not just not where I am.
All right, Harry. Oh wait, Harry, go ahead. So Katie, then.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So during when you're designing or going through a creative process, do you ever start to feel stuck or blocked? And
Never.
How
I don't even know what those words mean.
How do you work through that to get to an end product that you're proud of?
It really depends of how stuck you are, how depressed that might get you, or maybe it's just a day of self-care, or maybe it's a day where you go back to the library or to the Strand or something like that. Or it really depends. But yeah, it happens all the time. Like really all the time. Sometimes, doing what we do, we work also on several projects at the same time. So okay, let's table this one for now because it's really, I don't really know what to go with this. And you just don't want to make a choice just because, you can't phone it in. You're bound to regret it and redo it. So it's really better to just step away and work on something else. And I think that's really the best way. And,
yeah, I was gonna say, that thing where you're trying to remember something, you're like, oh, I can't remember what I'm gonna say, and as soon as you start to talk about something else, then you remember that thing. So I would say step away, put your focus somewhere else. Maybe sometimes it's also if you're taking a walk, or also just like watching a movie, something where you're a little bit more passive. So you're just watching a thing on a screen. It just lets your brain like swim a little bit. And also just, and I say this, I say this now, so it kind of feels kind of hard won, but I would just say like something will come. Something will come. Just
I really always find it as really as simple as like breathing in and breathing out. There is the time where you have to absorb, and then the time comes out. If nothing comes out, it really probably means that you have to. It's the time to to breathe in, and what comes, what you need, you'll know, and every time is something else. So it could also be a bath or
I was just literally gonna say take a shower.
Yeah.
Like go out into the shower.
Yeah. Or an ice cream or something. That works for me.
Yeah.
Or a cocktail, whatever.
Harry, go ahead.
Yeah, let's say you're given a script and you have like an initial reaction and you feel very strongly about it, and the director, you had a meeting with the director and like there's a disconnect. Something's not, you're not on the same page. Where you're looking to take it might not be where they're looking to take it. Have you experienced that? What remedies do you have for that? I'm just curious.
It just depends. I think it's good when someone isn't on exactly the same page as me. And I think I'm going to use a gross example, right? If the conversation with the director is he's like, I fucking hate dogs. All I want this show to be is like pictures of dogs at the pound just before they die. Like that's the world, and get on board or don't. And like, don't do that. But if it's like, I want to explore this world, it's interesting to me. I hear what you're saying. Like, if it feels like, oh, there's maybe an interesting something to kind of, when I, again, when I like, if I'm going to put my peanut butter as chocolate, like it like that can be fruitful, and it just is about whether you want to go on the ride and what the ethics of that ride are. Do you know what I mean? I turned down a production of The Crucible when I was an undergraduate because I think it's a horrible play, A. B, I think it's literally just about like a middle-aged man. I think Arthur Miller's great. Death of the Salesman's a great play. All My Sons is great. Like he wrote a lot of great plays. Crucible is not one of them for me. And I met with a director who was basically like, we were on different pages in a way that didn't feel like we were going to be able to solve that problem. And I was like, cool, let's not do this. And sometimes that's the best way, But don't short yourself the possibility of going to a place that you didn't know you could go.
But I mean, as a designer, I'm a designer, I'm not a director, so I expect to, before I start developing too many ideas, I feel I need to hear what the take of the director is. So for me, sometimes I listen to that and I just try to, I have to embrace it. if I can't embrace it, then I really ask more questions. If I still can't embrace it, then I just bring my argument. And I remember there was, in one instance, it was an opera, Beatrice and Benedict, and so which is like a story of Much Ado About Nothing, which is all about falling in love with the right person, with the wrong person, all these things. So to me, it was all, especially also the music was like very like carefree, and the director wanted to have the period set in the time when the music was written, which is the 1800s somewhere. In the time, extremely Victorian, everything is buttoned up, very artificial, and so I couldn't see it. I just couldn't see it. I tried. I did all this research, and I just couldn't see it. So I did that research. I had a pile of books, all those images, and then I did my own research, which I thought more of a Fragonard 18th century frolicking in the flowery meadows with swings and flowers, and with boobs hanging out. So I just did the two things, and I said, okay, there is this, there is this, there is, or there is all of this world. And his eye, let's do that. So there is also a way, if you do it in a constructive way, you might be able to also change direction of things.
I also think it's certainly a good director doesn't want what they're asking for in a literal way.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That
they need the designers.
Yeah, and so even when they're being super specific, often they're just trying to describe a note that is in their head that they are waiting for you to transform.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of directors who have, especially when they work with like kids that are just out of grad school, and I remember this from being a younger designer, which is that if you start to just give them exactly what they're asking for, that feels like quicksand to them. Like that's just like, no, I don't want to be responsible for this. Like you take what I'm saying and transform it. And so that's also, they're waiting in some level for you to be like, cool, what about Fragonard? Oh, that's so exciting. And if they're not, then like, well.
Yeah, I mean, to me, sometimes I wouldn't really quite understand or relate, but then what I started to do is sort of go into rehearsals and so see what the director is actually doing with the actors, how he's developing these characters. So then when you see that, then it all starts making sense because you see an actor being that specific character that I would have not envisioned. So if you actually stick too much to your own abstract ideas, then it might not jive with what the actors really need to become that character. Because in the end, it's really, you're giving an image to what's happening in the rehearsal room. So that's really important.
Over there.
Hi. Having worked in this industry, I was just wondering, like, what are some tools that you find to combat burnout or even a healthy lifestyle, work lifestyle balance?
I don't know. Any suggestions?
I don't know. Yeah.
You just try to listen.
Yeah, you have to listen to your body. I think you do. You really have to listen to yourself and know what you need. So if it is a walk or if it is you just need some quiet time, if you need the mornings to be quiet, I know, I truly just listen to myself and my insides. And also creating boundaries for yourself. So knowing that if you need a day a week or you need evenings off, you might not always be able to maintain that, but at least you can try to advocate for yourself.
Yeah, I just exactly what you said.
Yeah, same, and I'm not that good at it.
Can you speak to your understanding or your perception of a director's point of view on text and your point of view on text as a designer? Like how does the text play a role in your process versus the way a director looks at it?
That's a great question. That is, I feel less bound to the text, kind of necessarily. I am not a very good reader, just technically not a very good reader, and also just I don't have an academic brain particularly. So I try to glean what I need to glean from the text. Sometimes they're very specific things. I do find myself, I just was literally in a meeting where I was like the night before, I was like, I should look at the script again. And it was like a whole thing where they're like, oh, it's like, oh, that's supposed to open into a whole thing where there's a dining room. I guess I should have remembered that. True story. Bullshit my way through it today. But I try to move into a world of images, whether that's a model or research pictures or whatever, as quickly as I can, because I think for me it's a little easier to relate to in a way that feels clearer to me. I've worked with directors that like, and I read theory and I do things like that, but I just hard for me to engage too deeply in a kind of textual analysis that I know is an important part of a lot of directors' processes, right? So I try to move it into the realm of images, which is a realm that I feel more comfortable in, and I mean, I'm distrustful of language. You know what I mean? In a kind of basic way, and this is not what you're asking exactly, but I feel like when people say things like abstract or real or things like that, it just means like a million different things to a million different people. So I just like, please, if you say timeless to me, I literally don't know what that means. Please stop talking. So I can move to, but I know a lot of directors are very textually based, and so it's about finding that like cool, timeless like this, timeless like this, timeless like this. You know, I try to get it into a thing where it's like, so robes or 1950. Like, what does that mean to you? That's how I try to relate to it.
Yeah, I mean, I never encountered a director who's interested in having a conversation with me about just the text. So the reason why they need a designer is because a designer can understand what is important to them about the text, and we can translate it into images, and that's really same. Yeah. But it's really about, as a designer, you really translate the concept and the words into images, and that's what they really want.
It's interesting. For me, it's 50-50. There are times where I think my primary focus is to get underneath the text to find the images that represent it. But also, too, there are times where I'll read, especially on new plays, I'll read the script and have questions for the director and the playwright about what the intention is, because oftentimes there are things that just don't land or make sense if I take it into design. And so we attack it both ways, I would say.
Yeah. And I think of this too, like I did a Toilets and Cressida at a park with Dan Sullivan, and Dan, like, for me, reading Shakespeare is like the most impossible thing in the entire world. Can't do it. Sometimes rewarding, mostly not, and just like completely baffling to me. And Dan really understands that text in a really profound way, and so. Toilets and Cressida, if you know it, there's like two women and then like a bunch of guys that are like all different, but they're like all literally exactly the same. And so Dan, Dan for me, because I was doing the close too, Dan really helped me understand the differences of those people. And I basically was just like, help. And he was
a good director will do that. Yeah, especially on Shakespeare. I've had great directors. I'm just like, let's walk through every single character, every single page with me, and let's really like figure out like what's going on here. Yeah,
I do that all the time. That's my first. I don't touch even research before I had a conversation like that with the director. I want the director to really tell me who they think each character really is.
Dede, Fabio, David, we do need to start wrapping up because we have to do a turnover for the show coming.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We don't.
Do we have any
Tonight Show?
Do we have anything else you'd like to impart before we leave?
It's been wonderful for me. I've learned a lot. So thank you both for coming, and thank you all for engaging.